Welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates on June 25th, 2024. Before I call on Gary Schmidt, I would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners and Vice Chair Ben West for leading the meetings in my absence. I am back, I'm doing well. Those who are hoping for my early demise will be deeply disappointed. I have to say that. Gary, what's up first?
Welcome back, Chair Smith. It's wonderful to have you back in person. We're grateful. You have a lot today, Commissioners, because this is the last week of the fiscal year, and I think we can get through it all, but we're going to do things a tiny bit different today. But because we've noticed the different governing bodies, we will go through those one at a time, but we'll do them a little bit different. So first, Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
Housing Commissioner Ann Leinster is not online. If she joins in the next second, we'll join. So here's how we're doing it different. Because the consent agenda is so large, I'm simply going to ask, Commissioners, do you have any questions about the two items on the Housing Authority consent agenda? No.
I am open to comments, Commissioners, on the Housing Authority consent agenda.
I move to approve the,
No, there's no motion necessary because it goes to Thursday's business meeting.
Yeah, so I see no
that's right.
objections.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam Brown, for coming forward today.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
I will recess as a Housing Authority of Clackamas County and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board.
All right, so this is a quick briefing because you have a public hearing on Thursday on approval of a supplemental budget over 10%. The amount is $14,000, and they're related to interfund transfers and other revenue sources. No county general funds are involved. Kia Selly is the director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Very quick, please. What are the changes? Go ahead.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, Chair Smith and directors. I'm here today seeking approval of the supplemental budget for the current fiscal year. The effect of this resolution is net increase of $14,000 in appropriations and a transfer in appropriations of $37,000 to address funding in three areas. First, funding is increased for the nutrition program at the Milwaukee Community Center to cover the increased cost of food and the higher
I'm
demand.
going to pause for a moment. Is there anything that we can do with the noise outside? Yes. Because I'm having trouble hearing our presenter.
Yeah. We have multiple staff working on that.
Okay.
Wow, that worked.
Kia, please continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Second, additional funding has been allocated to cover the lump sum payment to staff agreed upon during the COLA reopener agreement. And lastly, and this is good news, the NCPRD System Development Charge funds actually have generated more revenue, some expenses because of investment fees, but basically this higher interest revenue and investment fees have come in higher than expected. So, but I think that's in total a good news story for NCPRD.
Any questions or comments for the presenter today? Any objections? Gary, this appears at
This Thursday, correct.
Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. Next, Chair, would you please convene as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District?
I will recess as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and convene as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District Board.
Again, this is a consent agenda, but I do want to have a quick discussion. This is approval of a supplemental budget under 10% for the Enhanced Law Enforcement District. There's a net increase in appropriations of $364,695. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, will share the details. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. In the supplemental request for consent agenda, we are requesting to recognize beginning balance in this current year from last year's ending fund balance, and also to recognize additional interest that has come in during this year, and we'll use those toward better transparency in actual expenditures in this enhanced law enforcement fund for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I see the amount is an additional $364,000, almost $65,000. Is all of that interest?
No, it's about split 50-50 between recognizing beginning balance, actuals, and interest.
Good. Well, the sheriff will have more opportunity to hire even more people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Seeing no objections, moving forward.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the Library Service District Board?
I will recess as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District Board and convene as the Library District of Clackamas County Board.
Thank you. This is also a request for consent agenda, but it's budget related, so I'd like Elizabeth to give a quick update. This is approval of a supplemental budget under 10%, a net increase in appropriations of $956,825. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So each year, our property taxes are collected throughout the year. And so some actually come in toward the end of the year after we've created the budget, and then even we get the June collections in July. So each year, we need to recognize those collections to then appropriately distribute those to the libraries. And so these will be automatically distributed once you've approved the supplemental budget to be accurate for this fiscal year.
Questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please convene as the Development Agency of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Library Service District of Clackamas County and convene as the Clackamas County Development Agency Board.
There's one request for consent agenda. Do you have any questions, Commissioners?
I have no commissioners, do you have questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you very much, Dan Johnson, for your contribution on this.
Thank you. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the Clackamas County Development Agency Board and convene as the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners.
You'll meet as the Board of Commissioners for the rest of today's meeting. Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. You have approximately 40 items. So again, we're not bringing staff up one at a time, but rather if you have questions on any of the 40 items, please ask now, and the staff will come up for the appropriate department.
And the subdepartments are disaster management, finance, transportation and development, health, housing, and human services, which is quite lengthy today. I understand many of those are yearly contracts that we have seen before. Any questions or comments from commissioners on those departments that I just mentioned? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Congratulations. So all of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting for your action and decision. Congratulations, team. All right. We still have a lot to do, though. Let's move forward. Next, Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, the Committee for Community Involvement, staffed by Public and Government Affairs, currently has 4 openings on committee due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, 6 applications were received, 3 are recommended for appointment, all are new. Recommendations are Patricia Erdenberger, Marion Kaufman, and Amy Nichols to first terms.
I will accept the motion.
I move to approve the Committee for Community Involvement nominations, Patricia Erdenberger, Marion Kaufman, and Amy Nichols.
Commissioner Scholl has moved for the appointments of the Community Involvement, Committee for Community Involvement of Patricia Erdenberger, Marion Kaufman, and Amy Nichols, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just would like to say that, Amy was one of the folks that ran in the race for position 3, but we became good friends. And I saw that she was talented and suggested she get involved in some of these county. I think, Chair, you agreed with me with that. So welcome, Amy. Yeah.
Yeah, I always love seeing new volunteers to these boards. Any other comments? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is a briefing on a public hearing you'll have this Thursday, and that is approval of a supplemental budget resolution over 10%. For fiscal year 2023-2024, appropriations are increased by $10,125,299. Funding is through charges for services, federal, state, and local grants, interfund transfers, other revenue sources, and $4,461,095 in county general funds. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, will give you a preview. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. And due to Oregon Budget Law, ORS 294.433, we are allowed to make appropriation changes throughout the year approved by the board, and so that's what we've done today. And due to it being over 10%, it does require a public hearing, which we request today. So I'll briefly go over the items. There are quite a few, as this is the end of the year, and so we're making sure that we're in budget compliance. The first one is a transfer from a non-department, it's our general fund of $4.6 million, and those will go to several, 5 departments that are identified in your packet. Item 2 is a transfer of general fund revenue to the county clerk to increase their authority. This is due to loss of recording fee revenue, and we've discussed that due to the high interest rates, they're not collecting the revenue as they have. Item number 3 is Human Resources Department. We're recognize a transfer from the self-insurance fund, and that's to support limited term staffing. Number 4, we're increasing the sheriff's office budget to receive an additional grant and also to increase their general fund support, a total of $5.1 million, and that'll go into operating expenses and special payments. Number 5 increases the transportation and development, recognizing additional general fund true-up of $48,000, and also shifts spending authority to operating expenses to support dog services, as well as a transfer of contingency for the Gladstone Library.
We'll just pause for a moment until we can abate the outside noise.
Thanks, Dan.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
All right, thank you. Item number 6 is library services. We're increasing the charges for service, recognizing those in transfers to increase expending authority for special payments and contingency. Number 7 is in the road fund. We're shifting $314,000 to operating expenses for additional higher project costs that have come in. Number 8 is our public land corner preservation charges, recognizing additional revenue and then increasing operating expenses by $39,000. And number 9 is our special grants fund that holds our opioid funds as well as our ARPA funds. Each quarter, as we recognize the expenditures of ARPA funds, we then recognize that revenue. So this is a recognition of $3.4 million for stormwater and infrastructure projects. Number 10 is a reduction in grant revenue and a one-time increase of general fund support for H3S. And then we're also recognizing, this is a small change from the packet you have. We just recognized last afternoon that we need to transfer, it's not changing the $19.1 million in budget authority, but it's from, let's see, to special payments, up to operating expenses, and to transfers. So in your packet, it shows from special payments to operating expenses. We also are increasing by a small amount transfer authority, and that keeps us in budget compliance. So they have a lot of grants, and every grant is unique on if it's recognized as like a contract, or if it's a special payment, or if we're transferring funds. So we're making sure that those are accurate. And then number 11, transferring 1.2 from their contingency to increase budget authority, and that's for the Health Center's Lake Road new health center. And number 12 also is a transfer from the self-insurance contingency to HR that we mentioned earlier. And we're getting to the end here. Number 13 increases risk management charges and reduces contingency. They had some unanticipated claims, and so that's about $325,000 that they're recognizing. And number 14 increases our technology services. We're recognizing additional revenue, and we're increasing their operating expense by $73,000 because we are going to put in Alertus in our central utility plant. And so those were not anticipated dollars for a project, so we're recognizing those this month. And then last, item 15 increases our fleet charges for services, recognizing additional revenue because we are recognizing additional expenses of about $500,000 for parts and fuel. Our fuel increases have risen significantly. And that's the list, and be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, I will entertain questions or comments on this revised budget. It's nice to note that we are in the positive on the ledger side of the equation. It hasn't always been that way. Right, Gary? Yeah, I want to thank all of the departments for their due diligence on watching every single dollar in Clackamas County. Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Great, thank you. There will be a public hearing on this Thursday. Next, proposed gates on Clackamas Road. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present. There's a memo in your packet. You may recall you discussed this a few weeks ago. You asked for a policy session. Dan felt the timing is so urgent, he wanted to revisit this with you one more time. And if you're satisfied, we can go forward. And if not, we'll wait till they're back to do a policy session. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, I want to start with two things. One, it's great to have you back, Chair. Excellent to see you. Number two, I want to do a shout out to Gary Schmidt for a fabulous change in process today. Although I love spending Tuesday mornings with you, that was the most fabulous request for consent I've ever been at. So thank you so much. Hey, we are here again today. Dan Johnson, Director of the Department of Transportation and Development, here again today to talk about the possible hearing to gate Clackamas Road, not Clackamas River Drive. Correction. I'm going to kind of run through the materials again, just to make for the good of the public. Basically, Clackamas Road is a dead-end county road. If you look at Exhibit A, it illustrates the road in question. Essentially, it comes off and dead ends along this roadway or along the railroad over there to the west. And essentially, this area is not, I can't give you a history on how, what, and where, and why that became a county road, but it is. It is an area, because it is pretty secluded, that becomes a frequent opportunity for individuals to camp and reside in. If you look at Exhibit B in the packet, you'll see illustrations of the folks that are currently camping within the right-of-way. We have been working collaboratively with the adjoining property owners, which there are two businesses, one to the north, one to the south. There are repeated issues with the occupants, drug paraphernalia, garbage, violence in the area. I think we've talked about this area before. I'm not going to rekindle all this. You're very familiar with it. Essentially, we've been working with our partner agencies, the Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Office, H3S, about how best to deal with this particular issue on this particular roadway. There are a variety of options. Those options include gating, posting it, vacating it at some point in time. Collectively, the team felt the most appropriate action at this point in time is to hold a public hearing. Basically, our code doesn't allow gates on county roads unless the board has a public hearing and there's 100% approval from the landowners to gate a county road. In this set of circumstances, there is approval from 100% of the property owners, and we're basically here requesting the board authorize an advancement of a public hearing to gate that particular road. I want to go back to the question that was asked, and the question that was asked was a good one the last time we talked about it, which was what's the plan in addressing those occupants that are on the road today. And it was interesting. I was at the administrative warrants discussion last week, and I think there was a question around standard operating procedures. There is no standard operating procedure when we deal with these circumstances. Essentially, they're on a case-by-case basis. But what was great to see is the fact that I think you had 6 people up here from different areas of interest, from the District Attorney's Office to H3S, the Sheriff's Office, County Council, and ourselves, all collaborating and working to determine what is the best and appropriate action on any given set of circumstances with the folks that we're dealing with there. Essentially what would happen if you authorize us going forward to public hearing, we'll prepare that paperwork. It's going to be a while, obviously, until we have that public hearing. In addition to that, we have a property owner that's offering to pay for the gate individually on their own, 100% of the cost, gate acquisition and installation. We'd advance that public hearing, and then we would engage with those partners, our other partnering agencies, to come up with a plan about how to engage these individuals and provide them assistance. And then if the board desires, we can provide a copy of that engagement plan to you and inform you about how that will be taken care of. The long-term plan, in all honesty, is to more than likely vacate the road. There's no public need for it. We just think this is a near-term action, kind of a first step, and then subsequently we'll look to go forward with the road vacation, which will come forward for board consideration. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I think we might have a few questions. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, Dan, my concern in discussing this both on Tuesday and the following day with the Sheriff's Office as far as the administrative warrant or whatever it was called, my concern is timing for this. I'm okay with doing this. It's just a matter of timing till we have a place and a system where these folks will be relocated to. I think in it, as it stands in itself, this dead ends into railroad tracks, right? UP railroad tracks. On the other side of the railroad tracks is a continuance of that road, right? So my concern, for example, is that these just move across the railroad tracks because they like the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks is a conduit for people who this population, not all, but some of the population goes up and down these railroad tracks, and they can cut through the gate of those business owners on the railroad side of the property. So I don't think that this gets them totally where they want to go, but my concern is timing. I'm okay with this, but until we have a place for them, for these RVs to go, they shouldn't go in other parts of the county. They'll be harder to find and harder to serve and harder to help get into a better place. So I just ask the board's consideration for, phasing this appropriately with the sheriff's office and H3S on what we need to relocate those people.
Comments?
That's a long discussion, and it's a deep discussion. And I'm not saying that it's the board's directive to have a discussion around that and what that might look like. It's interesting. We do engage them to try to provide them housing options and alternatives. Can I affirm to the board or yourself that they won't relocate to someplace else in the county? I can't do that.
I know.
What I can tell you is the fact that this particular road has been a reoccurring problem, and reoccurring for the last couple of years, in all honesty. This is not our first attempt to clean this road up. It is, I think we're in our third or fourth on this particular property. It's a reoccurring issue because of its seclusion, where it's at and what's going on. If there's a desire from the board's perspective to have that discussion, I guess, and you're not opposing the posting and the gating of it, I guess the question would be more of authorization to go forward with the public hearing to gate it. But if there is board consistency on that, to wait to operationally gate it and shut it until that larger discussion takes place, we can do that. I just don't have those answers to those questions that you're asking or you're raising today.
If I can, Chair, and that is, I probably want to draw your attention to the fact that KGW has done a news piece on this already, and I think it's the beginning of several more to come. So I think it might be politically interpreted that we're going to be pushing them out. And I don't know if you read the news article, but they were talking about putting up their own gate to keep the county out of them being blocked out.
Yeah, and they've also said they've been there for 5 years, which they have not been there for 5 years.
I get that, but this is a bigger problem, and I think the timing of it, both practically, as far as relocating them, and is also politically, it's not the right time, in my
Have
opinion.
they been offered services? Who in the room can answer that?
People who
We look no. So essentially, we have engaged the prior. I can't tell you if these occupants are the same occupants we've had previously. I can tell you that if we authorize this, we will engage with them, provide them opportunity for other services, and provide a holistic approach to relocating the areas and rehousing these individuals. If they choose to accept that, that's their decision. If they don't, they don't.
The news call last week.
I will note there are two major businesses
Yes.
that are on either side of this. These occupants pose a problem to that, which I'm not very happy with. Gary, you have a comment?
You could, as a suggestion, you could agree to hold a public hearing when you're back and give staff the next 3 weeks to work on a plan so that we can indeed offer support for folks who may be relocated. And if we don't deliver by the time of your hearing, you just cancel the hearing.
Well, what about the urgency for the board to take action today? That's why this is on the agenda today.
Your
So what
action-
happens with that urgency?
What is the urgency?
The urgency is the fact that we have two particular businesses that are in that.
Go ahead.
Would you like to join me? Feel free to come on
Yeah,
up.
Dan, please continue your comment.
Dan,
I'm gonna let Scott
Dan,
go.
please answer this question. What is the urgency today?
Well, the urgency is the fact that there's an issue in play right now with the occupancy on that particular road, and they're occupying it, and we have been approached by the neighboring businesses on that roadway to address the issue. And the issue that we keep continuously hearing is the fact that we have drug paraphernalia, we have garbage, we have feces, we have all these issues that go with these particular processes that raise a concern, and they raise a specific concern that those businesses have been telling us. So
So, and that inhibits them from performing their duties as a business.
It is a draw on their particular operations, and they have been, I'm going to acknowledge that they have been great partners in this discussion as well.
Scott, would you please opine on this?
Sure, I just thought, I was watching this from my desk and I ran up the stairs, so I'm a little out of breath. So excuse me.
Good.
But I heard the question about services being offered, and I thought I could speak to that because in working with the Neighborhood Livability Project, I'm aware that there's been numerous outreach events at this particular location. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but I guess there's be a half a dozen of them that have happened where they've gone out with dumpsters and cleaned up garbage. They've offered services. They've helped get several people that were previously out there housed. They've offered it to everyone, and what's left is people who are not interested, generally speaking, in the services that are being offered. That could change with continued outreach efforts, but outreach has occurred. I can also tell you that the number of RVs there is growing. This is something that it's varied throughout time, but it seems to be a collection point. And so that's why this particular location is of concern, not just to DTD, but to other departments and to the community.
So it sounds like the minute we clean people out, more people come in because it's a well-known place. Now, the board took action on RVs a couple weeks ago. Jane, what was that board action?
You allowed, well, there were two things. I think the one you're talking about is allowing law enforcement to get a warrant to remove people who were living in illegally parked RVs on the side of the road.
And does that apply to Clackamas Road?
I believe it does.
So why is that action being carried out on Clackamas Road?
It will apply. We still need the code to be amended to allow us to get those warrants, so that we're currently working to get that on the schedule at a business meeting.
And I want to confirm the fact that's a last step. That isn't the first step. I mean, the first step is the engagement, services offered, and then it's how those discussions proceed and how they're received. I mean, we have some individuals that I think that may refute those services and may object, and that's where the administrative warrant discussion comes in.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, this situation on Clackamas Road is terrible. To allow it to exist any longer is not sensitive to those people living there. They do need our help, but to allow the unsanitary situation and the hazard to the public posed by what's happened on Clackamas Road cannot be allowed to continue. So I recommend we go with that public hearing as soon as possible.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Scholl, on that, but we're being asked two things today. We're being asked on what we're presented with today, and then the issue of the public hearing comes up later. So Gary, I'm confused on this.
The request today is to schedule a public hearing, which would be July 25th, your first week back from recess.
Okay.
If you'd like more time to discuss this, that would just delay that public hearing until probably August.
But we're also being asked to post gates today.
No.
Or not, okay.
Just the public hearing, and then
Alrighty.
we'll deal with.
Okay,
operating.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I do apologize for that. I was actually looking up the article that Paul had referred to from KGW. This is a conundrum because we do want to help people, but as Commissioner Scholl pointed out, I think that this is human health and safety issues. I think we can frame this issue, we're not trying to be inhumane and push people out of anything, but this has been a problem because people have been reluctant to participate in their own wellness at this point. That's how I see it, and that's kind of the difficulty we're facing. I do think we should go ahead. I think that we can frame it with the public and the news folks and just say, no, we're not attempting to make people houseless. This has now become a public, from my point of view, a public health issue for their own good and more than likely a behavioral health issue. So what we can make sure we're doing to the best of our ability is attempt to try and work with these folks. I just don't see any reason to wait any longer because it's impacting that area. So, but it's not a decision being based on heartlessness. It's kind of right now, it's at that pragmatic threshold level where we're going to have to do something. And I think maybe we could talk to the media then and just say this is why we're doing it, and there's no easy answer to this. And we can certainly point to Commissioner Ben's idea of the recovery centers as maybe another footstool. So we can also highlight what we have been doing well now. So I'm okay moving ahead with it at this point.
Dan?
Thank you so much. And I don't disagree. I think that, again, within this next 3-week period, if you choose to go forward with the public hearing, we can provide you a plan. We can provide you information about how, what our plan to engage these individuals will be. I do want to correct myself, Chair, because you said there were 2 things on there. When you said the word post, I thought you meant actually posting the property and the facilities. No, there is 2 requests, 1 public hearing for 2 requests. That is to, 1, gate the road and also put essentially a no trespassing sign on the road as well. So
And that won't happen until the public hearing?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
that's where I was confused. Thank you,
my
Dan.
apologies, yep.
We have more commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, the recovery center isn't ready, built, place, there's no place to put these folks. I'm going to use the word neighborhood in the context of whether it's industrial, business, commercial, or residential. I think the last time I was there was a couple of weeks ago. I think I counted roughly about maybe 9 to 12 different sites between tents, campers, and RVs. And if they all went to 9 different or 12 different neighborhoods and they set up shop, which they will, they're not going to disappear because we close this road off. And we're going to have all those streets, which we can't really fence off or close. So this is not a solution. This feels very Portland-esque. Multnomah County's doing this. Move them from one place and they just go somewhere else. And that's not a solution that works. And I'm not going to put my fingerprints on this at all.
Commissioner West.
I think there is nothing compassionate about what's going on this roadway. The public has a right to no longer tolerate it. They just do. Like, this is our community too, and those are our streets, and this is where we raise our kids and we open our businesses. And so I think this is a creative way to show the public that we respect their public spaces, and that we're doing this work for them also, while trying to find that balance of services. It's unfortunate that a lot of counties haven't shown the same urgency as our county in dealing with this crisis, and that we share a 10 or 12 mile border with one of them. But I think we do need to move forward with respecting just the concept of the rule of law. And it's not perfect, and we have been hindered and hobbled by bad policy around us, not that we created, but we're stuck with it. So I support moving forward. I think this is just one step in doing this. I don't want to do whack-a-mole. Like, I agree with you, Commissioner Savas. I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer to that real critique that you're bringing. It's hard to have answers to a lot of these things, and none of it's perfect. None of us want to be in this situation, but a lot of bad policy was made in Oregon that got us here. Let's not forget that. We're just dealing with the mess that's rolled downhill to Clackamas County. And our citizens are tired of tolerating it. Our businesses are tired of tolerating. Not that we don't have compassion, because we do, but we also have the right to say, enough is enough. And we are starting to really implement things like the deflection. It's not close to being open, but we're talking about innovative things that are really inspiring, like the recovery campus. That's way down the road. It's not that far down the road in government, but in reality it is. And we are trying to, and we have other systems in place and resources, but you don't get to be comfortable to be a blight in my community. You don't get to be comfortable there and never be challenged. We can do both things with compassion. So I support moving forward with trying to address this issue with how it's presented. And it's imperfect, Commissioner Savas, but it is what we have.
Thank you. Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, we have to remember that what we're doing here now is we're fighting with the hold that drugs have on the judgment of the people living on Clackamas Road. And every one of those people, I believe they know. They've been approached by our staff. Every one of them tonight could stay in a safe, off-the-street place, even if it's a hotel voucher. And they have not accepted that. And we must act firmly to make sure they are not allowed to live in absolute squalor. And for their own benefit, we need to continue on the public hearing and restore Clackamas Road to a safe place for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before I call on Commissioner Savas, I too am going to opine on this. And I agree with the statement, we're allowing these people to be comfortable being a blight on county property, and we have been so consistent in saying that is not allowed, especially with the new deflection program coming online September 1st. We have proven to be a leader in Clackamas County in that. It's the compassionate thing to do to offer services to these people so they can get on a path to prosperity. And to really, with the neighborhood programs that we have in our district, 88 district attorney that goes out and makes a very compelling case for that. For a drug-free life and sound mental health. And I suspect many of those people that are living on this place are that way. I'm not concerned about them crossing the railroad tracks and trekking up a hill, by the way. It's not a flat surface, because this butts up against the DEQ inspection center, and I've been there too. And you could say that whole Union Pacific Railroad that runs north and south is a portal for homeless. This isn't the only one, by the way. There are many areas, but we can start here on moving forward with the hearing. I am comfortable with that. On the hearing, there's an issue that has not been discussed. Not only is it 2 gates, but what about vacating the property to the private sector? Have they been willing to take over ownership of that?
We have been in discussions with them about that, and we will be advancing that at a future date.
Okay, after the public hearing?
After the public hearing, yep.
So if that property is in private ownership, does that give them any broader legal rights to take care of the homeless than if it was owned by county government? Scott?
I think generally speaking, the answer is yes. It makes a case of criminal trespass much more straightforward.
That's what I was led to believe in a prior discussion we had many months ago on this topic. So I think that's something that we need to look at too. And let's face it, this population needs to know that this board is serious about going forward. And if we want to be lambasted in the news media for doing what's right, by doing what our citizens demand of us, well, you know, that's the job that we get. Oftentimes, Commissioner Schrader says we get tomatoes with the job. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, like I said earlier, when the session first started, I'm okay with this. It's the timing of it. And Chair, I don't know if you listened to the session when we had our undersheriff and H3S and others here about the administrative warrant piece. And I think folding all those ideas into a place. We've heard from people on Causey. We've heard from businesses on 82nd Avenue, neighbors. That's where they're going to go. And actually, some of them, as I understand it, have been pushed off of some of those roads to this place as the place to go. So it's somewhat foolish not to have a complete solution. While it might feel good when they relocate, it's not going to feel so good to all those other folks. Last evening, I talked to one of the business owners who closed his business on 82nd Avenue because of this problem.
And we don't want the businesses
And we
to close here
we
either.
can't fence off 82nd Avenue. We can't fence off and gate Causey Avenue and all the other streets along that 82nd Avenue corridor, all those side streets. All we're going to do is push the problem down the street. That's not a solution.
Well, let's figure out what to do with this particular situation. By the time we have the public hearing, I'm confident the H3S staff will come forward and they will have a solution to this. Commissioner West.
I'm actually, I might shock everybody. I'm gonna quote Ted Wheeler yesterday. Ted Wheeler told KGW News that he will begin to enforce the new homeless camping ban next week. We're also about to get a Supreme Court ruling which many feel like will be more favorable to local jurisdictions with the Grants Pass case and also Boise v. Martin. But Ted Wheeler said this, and he's completely right, and this is just also doing the right thing, is the only way you can define fairness is that you establish rules. You make clear what the rules are, and everybody plays by those same rules. That's what the rule of law is. Because you're being refusing of taking the generosity of the taxpayers and the business owners and those in the community that want to give you a hand up, and you refuse it and are stubborn and are being resistant to the rule of law, well, we all have to live by those rules. So do you, if you're on CAUSE. And so, yeah, it may create another problem, but at a certain point, we just have to stand up for what the rules are, and that we have to start from there. So I think we're right now, starting at that point, is that these are the rules, here's your resources. And I think that's the fair and right thing to do.
Thank you. Gary, we have a recommendation. Does that require a motion?
No.
Okay, so we're going to move forward with a hearing. Do we have a date for that hearing, Tony?
Thursday, July 25th,
July 25th, that's a Wednesday,
Thursday.
at a business meeting. Thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Supportive Housing Services comment letter to Metro. You asked for this last week, Commissioners. Staff has drafted a draft letter for your consideration, and ideally you'll have a decision today on sending a letter. Emily Klepper from County Administration and Adam Brown from Health, Housing, and Human Services will present. And again, there is a draft letter in your packet.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, we've had an opportunity to read this letter. It's been in the packet and posted. I think we're going to consider probably some additions to this, but first we'll let staff make their presentation.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Our presentation is going to be very short, pretty much what you all have just said. So we were here last week presenting an update on the Supportive Housing Services Program and some conversations we've been in with Metro as they explore a potential ballot measure for November. This board expressed a desire to communicate some concerns and questions that they had, hence the letter in front of you today, hopefully capturing those questions. But we have prepared the letter and are open to your feedback, please.
The reason for the urgency for this letter, for those people who are listening, is the Metro is considering taking action and/or a decision on July 9th. The board has been generous enough to designate me as the liaison during this procedure while we're on break, and so therefore we wanted to be able to voice our opinion. We don't know exactly what action is going to be taken on the July 9th decision point. However, we do have concerns about this measure going forward. We have read through this, Commissioners. We also have at our seats an addendum from Commissioner West regarding the recovery-oriented system of care as a possible addition. I know Commissioner Savas has an addition. So I guess, Commissioner West, we'll start with you since you put this in writing. Would you?
Yeah, thank you. Great letter, by the way. I think we need to be clear and professionally firm in where we sit as a county. I think it's important because you can just look at the newsreel like the last couple weeks. There is a clear contrast between where successes are happening and where they're not happening. And I think in the metro area, this tax originally failed in Clackamas County, though we have the best outcomes. We still got to work. It was relatively close in Washington County, and it passed in Multnomah County pretty overwhelmingly. The two counties that were more apprehensive and kind of being judicious in the process, the voters are having the best outcomes for the voters, where Multnomah County continues to perpetually struggle years into this. And I want to make sure that when we set a roadmap about why we're successful, we're clear about what's informing our success and our philosophy, and that it's replicatable. These things that we're doing aren't like rocket science, but they're just getting to work and trying to solve the problem, and we can replicate this, and this is the system that we're using. Now, some counties, like my opinion, like Multnomah County, don't have a system. They're kind of driven by an ideology, and it's helter-skelter, and it's just kind of all over the place, and nobody quite knows what they're doing, though they have the biggest crisis, the largest population, but there's really a lack of leadership. And I think when we show, this paragraph is to say it's replicatable, here's the leadership, here's how we're making all of the stakeholders in the community a part of the process, And we're looking to fill real gaps in the care continuum, and we need that local flexibility where we're having success and where we're being visionary and where we're starting to implement those things. That was the goal of this paragraph. You know, Commissioner Savas, you have previously mentioned some other things to point to that are specific around finances and the nexus between how these dollars are working and the longevity and the stability and all those things. I think those are important things to also add to this letter. I think it's essential that we need to make clear that we need the freedom to do what we're doing, and we don't need another bureaucracy to gum up the works for us as a county. But we also need accountability because we're all being held accountable to the failures to the north. We're all being judged by that, and the voters all see that. So we don't want to have all this put at risk because, one, we're asking for a permanent tax increase, or we're asking for more when we haven't earned it from the voters. What we do want is the increased flexibility, knowing that we have this stability, and we need accountability for real outcomes that need to be tied to dollars. And that is, I think, what we need to be focused on. But that's kind of my thoughts. You guys, I don't know if you had a chance to read this paragraph, but.
Would you like to read this paragraph, please?
Yeah,
Yes.
my paragraph, and we can totally cut it up and splice it up, but Clackamas County, and I don't know where in the letter we want to add it, we can maybe leave that to staff where it fits best, but Clackamas County's success can be attributed to the implementation of a recovery-oriented system of care. This focus has allowed us to program services around the needs of the whole person by increasing access to treatment while providing accountability. The ROSC allows all stakeholders in the community to participate in the recovery continuum. In Clackamas County, we are building out essential infrastructure to fill the gaps in the system. We look forward to expanding and partnering with other jurisdictions to extend its reaches, if we could partner with them. I don't know how we can fully partner with Multnomah County with the chaos it is in. I feel comfortable partnering with Washington County, Marion County, Yamhill County, even though they're not even part of that tri-county area. But Multnomah County still operates in the dark, and which has been widely reported. They still refuse to really implement an effective deflection program, which was directed by House Bill 4002. They still continue to double down on the same failed policies that have us all exasperated and frustrated. So I don't know if there has to be some accountability to bring Multnomah County along, because we can't be successful without a healthy Multnomah County. But Washington County and Clackamas County are absolute leaders in the region, not just in the state, on how to address this issue. And so I think we have to be aware of that as we move forward with the letter.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Commissioner West, I don't have any issue at all. So I support the draft language there. Where we insert it, maybe we have a better idea. I'm hoping maybe actually we give our staff enough ideas that we come back on Thursday with a better, more complete draft based on our conversation. Knowing that July 9th is when the Metro Council will be discussing this. What I do want to say, and going to digress a little bit into the past conversation because it's related to this conversation. So Commissioner West, you and I see a lot of things similarly with regards to the continuum of care, the need for recovery center, which is one portion of a greater problem. Where we're not successful, nor Multnomah County or Portland or anywhere else, is where the gaps are in the continuum of need and services with mental health facilities, the actual people, the providers, and the institutions, and the state statute that helps us institutionalize the people that cannot seem to be helped, who refuse all of the care, right? So I think Portland's learned that. I think they have a greater percentage and a population, clearly, of those individuals that refuse care, refuse service. And I know our approach has helped navigate that with more personal contacts. We've had a little bit more success, but nonetheless, whether it's the people that live on the street we just previously talked about, but that type of population we don't have an answer for. And my concern is that a number of elected officials in this region, not unlike us or other Portland, Metro Council, in this case Metro Council, are completely aware of perhaps those gaps and the need that this measure does not fix or address. So while we have success, there's areas where we don't. And I think that a greater conversation with our leaders and organizations, Metro, the counties, cities that are interested, a roundtable ideally of us, not the actual people that deliver the services and receive the dollars that are responsible, the governments, sit down and say, here are the gaps, here's a solution, or here's a concern, and then craft, whether it's a change in the measure or it's state lobbying to the state legislature, which is going to meet in 6, 7, 8 months, to say, hey, we need a bill that'll address a number of these things. We need the funding, state funding for mental health institutions, all this, because we're not solving the problem. And these supportive housing services, you know, even with the proposed changes that we've heard of, isn't going to solve the problem completely. So my concern is that this is an incomplete solution, similar to the last topic. It's incomplete, and we can't solve it, but we have to figure out how to address it as intelligently and strategically as possible. That said, you know, I think we ought to identify what those gaps are in the letter. And I'll ask staff to identify what those are. I don't have the words, and I don't have that intimate knowledge and experience to say what those are, but their proposal does not address those gaps, which is population A. Specifically in the LIP, it's called out as population A. And I think that there are some that thinks that, oh, you're just solving the situation or doing a great job maybe on population B, but population A, the measure, was not flexible enough in the first place in order to address that, and also didn't recognize the state need. So call that out in the letter. The other aspect is that, as we know, that the property tax rate measures are a steady stream of income. They go up 3% a year. They're somewhat recession-proof, other than people's ability to pay or not, but basically it's a steady stream upwards. This measure is based on income tax, personal income tax, and that's very unstable. In recessions, we lost several thousand people being employed, so they will have this less, you know, a very inconsistent funding stream, and we have an inflationary, layer that on top of the inflationary spike that we're seeing. I'm concerned that what they see as over-collection might end up being, if not planned correctly, could result in not enough revenue to deliver the services down the road, not that far down the road either. And we don't know what that inflationary spike is that is specifically to this industry that provides the services and all the facilities we need. I haven't heard or seen anything, and from conversations I've had with electeds that are going to be reviewing this, I'm not sure that they all know that either. Maybe some of them or one or two of them does, but I don't think they all do. But I think we need to I don't have an understanding or confidence that this financial needs on both sides of the equation, whether it's the expense side or the revenue side, the inflationary, the inconsistency in funding, has been factored in. So I would like some greater language in there that says, you know, there's an absence of financial data to justify the changes, and we in turn respectfully request that we have a greater discussion and that we work in collaboration with the counties, that if we do deem there is a change, that we work on it together. We shouldn't be in a position here as a recipient of these dollars, and we don't know what they're going to do on July 9th, and we don't know exactly what the staff recommendation is. We should know. We ought to be coordinated. We're not. That's a shame. All these tax dollars, and we're not coordinated. If you want to put that in a letter somehow, put that in a letter, but it's appalling. It's not, no reflection on anyone in this room. It's just appalling that the governments can't work together more wisely, more collaboratively, and if that begins with a change where it's a roundtable discussion to get there, that's my recommendation. But I just want to just emphasize those things. I just feel this is more sprung on us. I gathered the tri-chairs have had this meeting. I know there's an issue about the governance and the makeup of the composition of the members of that group, is maybe it could be improved. I don't disagree with that, but we're not ready for this. What's the urgency? What is the urgency? We got 7, 8 years left on this measure, 7 years on this measure left. Let's get it right. This just seems haphazard.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. I've been saying that. The tri-chairs have been saying that for a year or however long. Seems like it's been a year since this discussion has come up, and we think it's advantageous to us as Clackamas County comes out and stakes a position or stakes in the ground before the July 9th meeting. You've cited very many long-term solutions that have been proffered, but we are not offering long-term solutions today in this letter. Yes, those are very important. I understand that. But we do need to send this letter, and we need to have it done this week, and we need to be specific. We do have some specific language here. You have mentioned some gaps. I see 2 gaps, lack of financial data and addressing population A in this. I am very hesitant to make any comparisons to a property tax. I don't want to give Metro the impression that we support a property tax over an income tax, because they could offer that up too, and then we're really sunk. So I would strike any reference to the property tax. And Paul, I understand what you meant by that comparison, that one is more stable than the other. I'm not saying that you promote that, but I just want to be very clear in the letter in that.
Chair, if I may, just one
Sure.
correction, please. Well, couple, that is that, well, you're right. So it's not, I'm just saying that it's comparatively, it's not a stable revenue source. So I'm not, no suggestion of changing that. But I'm going to go back to the gaps. The gaps I was speaking to specifically were gaps in the continuum of care, which is the mental health piece, which is going to be the recovery piece, all of those things, and the services rendered. So I don't know what those are, but I want to make sure the gaps are not, not what you listed there. So I want to make sure my colleagues know that as well.
So Paul, you want, the gaps you are concerned about, as I hear right, is the continuum of care, population A, and the absence of financial data.
Well, again, I want to clarify, I was looking at Adam, looking at staff to put in language that meets that. I'm giving you a big picture issue here, and maybe they can find the right words to frame that. I don't want to wordsmith it here. I'm not trying to wordsmith it. I'm deliberately not.
But I'm trying to get really down to what we want in this letter. That's why I'm asking the question. Adam?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So, Commissioner, I think I hear you that we know a lot of system failures are cascading down on the homeless services system, and the community's looking to the homeless services system to solve this problem, but we need to lean on those other systems to help fill those gaps, right, related to addiction, related to unmet behavioral health needs. We hear this from our own service providers, right? They're ill-equipped to adequately support people with the level of care that they need because they're homeless services providers, right? So we're doing our best to connect them to those systems, but I think the point here is that it has been, the homeless services system has been sort of tacitly tasked with driving that gap closing, and we need to reverse that and bring other systems to the table and compel them to the table. We can find a way to articulate that.
Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure who was next, Commissioners. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Okay. Just as a reminder for people who are listening, in 2010, the voters in the Tri-County area within Metro's boundaries voted to approve Measure 26-210, known as the Supportive Housing Services Measure. That gave, generously, they gave 10 years of this measure to be used, the proceeds to be used to solve the homelessness issue. And so today, we're only 3 years into that 10-year period that sunsets 31 December 2030. And there is no real clear regional picture as to where we're at in using these funds to solve the homeless problem. Now, we know Clackamas County is doing a good job, but I believe that we owe it to the people who voted for Measure 26-210 to urge Metro as strongly as we can to forego the July 9th decision to refer this issue to the ballot in November of this year, to extend the measure for an unknown period of time. Okay? It looks to me like by the time that the Supportive Housing Services measure sunsets, that it will have collected some $2.5 billion at the rate we're going. And so the people deserve to know exactly what their money has bought, what it has provided, before they're asked to consider extending that very generous commitment they made to support the supportive housing services measure to be extended into an unknown time into the future. So I support this letter. I support Commissioner West's paragraph, and also a piece on the population A, and a request from Metro for more data, a big picture as to where we're really at. So we can share that with the people of Clackamas County before they're asked to look at extending this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner West.
Let me give maybe a broad jump start into what a care continuum should look like from population A. But in recovery-oriented system of care, there's multiple entry points on where you're at. And maybe we should add something in that, like we allow the individual to enter where they're directly or where they're at within the process of recovery. But a care continuum looks like this. It starts with robust outreach. We do it with our CHA system. We know our population. We don't just give them sandwiches and tents, but we are actively, and I would even say in a good way, aggressively in that community, and they know who we are and that we're available. So robust outreach is one. Self-directed, we do understand like there's multiple points of access, not one size fits all. We try to have a large continuum that allows people to off-ramp into recovery and where they're at, whether it's street-level homelessness or maybe they're on the verge of losing their job, but they're still housed. You know, there's different populations within this, and we talk about them from A and B in these different places, but multiple entry points within the continuum. We need to stabilize people. We still are woefully, and we talked to, I just had a conversation with the DA Wentworth and Sheriff Brandenburg with Congresswoman Salinas about the issues we have around actually modernizing and having necessary beds for detox and medical, and to have people medically stable, where we deal with your acute crisis in the best practice in the most evidence-based way, and that in a way that's economically affordable and helps people get stabilized enough that they can rationalize in their own care again and begin to have some autonomy and be participatory in their own care. And fentanyl's a game changer with that totally, but it just talked about medical stabilization. So we haven't got to housing anybody yet, really. We're like shelter / this is all acute. These first three phases of the care continuum are all acute care. Then we go to pre-treatment. So they have to be low barrier access points, shelter points, where they can be safely entered into the recovery process. They could be there for maybe 90 days before we are actually stabilized to the point where we're moving on to a recovery community with transitional recovery housing that's long-term care with recovery attached to it. That's 18 to 24 months. Then we move on to permanent housing peer support. Maybe it's like 5 guys living in like an apartment together, or 3 guys, maybe 5's a lot, but they're all in recovery together. They're all maybe in workforce, maybe they're entering the trades, maybe they've gone to Clackamas Community College, but they're now in permanent supportive housing as part of it. And then alongside that, the last care continuum is to become sobriety, self-sufficient with education, employment, and skills training. That's a pretty good broad overview of what a care continuum could look like. But we have a lot of gaps in that. We do some of it, the pieces of this process, but addressing what we failed to address in 3 years in the metro area, where we need the flexibility of our funding to do those things. I think that maybe is talking about what Commissioner's office is like, what is a care continuum specifically, and then address that in the letter.
Thank you. I want to address the IGA for a moment. County Counsel Jane Vetto. Is this letter strong enough in regards to the legal implications around the IGA?
I think the letter is a strong letter. I don't think it, and I don't have a copy in front of me right now, but my review of it, I do not recall it being directly related to the IGA. We could add some language around that.
Is that necessary that we add that, do you think? Gary, Jane? Gary, Jane, go ahead.
No, I'm happy to defer that to Gary. I do think that, I do think staff has indicated some steps that Metro is likely to consider, and I think they have called those out in the letter. Whether they're Oh, thank you. Whether we want to bunch those together and have a direct kind of response to them or not is up to the board.
Gary?
There's already a reference to the IGA, but it's pretty light. We can
It is.
strengthen that up on the last paragraph of the first
Yeah,
letter.
paragraph
first page.
6 is pretty light. Let's just strengthen that language as well. Want to go to paragraph 4. The letter does talk about financial forecasting to understand the impacts. Are we going to unwind programs and services that are serving our community as well? So you do make an attempt, this letter makes an attempt to address some of that. Maybe that is a place to add some more financial data. In addition to, I read an article, it must have been last week, and somebody had, the author, and I would like to have, Adam, maybe you quantify this for me. They had determined in 1 year in the Tri-County area that $530 million has been spent on 20,000 homeless people in 1 year. And the cost per homeless person equals $27,000 per year. I would like to have that more quantified. That's a person's mortgage payment. At $2,000 a month, that's what a working person's mortgage payment is. I find that abhorrent that we are spending this type of money in the Tri-County region, and we haven't even touched what the Oregon legislature is doing. So the cost per homeless person in today's society in Oregon is going to break the bank. And that is why it's important to vacate Clackamas Road. It's important to know that these people need to get into services and get cleaned up, and it's important for Metro to know that don't pull the rug out from under us when we've got a program in Clackamas County that's working, and I'll reiterate what Commissioner West said. I believe this is an attempt to go after quite possibly our neighbors to the north who refuse to comply with the law and clean up their own situation, whereas 2 other counties are performing fairly well. So that's where we're at today. We have more commissioners in the queue in this. We have a lot of additions. Do what you can to send it forth. But commissioners, either we approve this letter on Thursday, or I'll just send it myself, because that's how deeply I feel about it. So let's make sure that we're prepared on Thursday not to wordsmith it again, but take a look at the draft that comes out, I suspect tomorrow, if we can get it done and make sure, okay? Commissioner Savas and then Commissioner West.
Yeah, well, Commissioner Smith, I'm hoping that you can, I'm not going to be, I'm taking that week off, but I'm hoping maybe you can actually personally deliver the letter
Yeah,
on July 9th.
yeah,
And
I
that-
wouldn't
and that
mind.
message.
Is it an open session? Do we know?
I think it's Metro's work session, so similar to your Wednesday policy session.
Okay. We'll
find
see,
it on
Paul, what we can do with that.
Yep. So one thing I do agree strengthening the language on the legal side of it, but after July 9th, I would really ask that we look at it from every legal angle.
Oh, sure.
On what they decide to do, right? Because we don't know exactly what they're going to do on July 9th. So I want to make sure that we, capitalize on, number one, being in attendance, whether it's staff in the room or ourselves, whoever can, and also the outcomes and looking into opportunities to make sure we address this thing. I don't want to lose sight of the fact we're trying to address a very difficult population. And Chair, you mentioned Clackamas Road again. I don't see that right now yet as a solution. I see that as an example that we don't have the means to fix it. We've been on this since, this is not a matter of a shortage of dollars, right? This is a matter of we have gaps that we can't fix. So Clackamas Road is either going to be an example of us closing a road because we can't deal with the problem, or we can deal with the problem and fix it. So that is my issue. And as Portland, or the mayor of Portland, pushes people out of the more wealthy central part of Portland into other areas as people get displaced, they go to East County, they go to Clackamas County, that's going to grow. And if we don't have the policies in place, we can't close the roads. Maybe we can close this one unique road, but closing that road is not going to address the problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salas. Commissioner West, you're up.
I'm going to read paragraph 4 because it's making me have a lot of thoughts. As Metro considers a change in the tax rate, please remember that the cost to deliver services has greatly increased the past 3 years. The original 2019 forecast of $250 million would have not allowed us to achieve the promised outcomes. Has Metro done financial forecasting to understand the impacts or the trade-offs the counties will have to make to accommodate reductions in revenue and trying to do more with less? Will we have to unwind programs and services that are already serving our community well? Great questions. Here's a couple thoughts. We know that they used 2017 forecasting numbers, and we did not have the giant spike in inflation and costs that we are now experiencing system-wide. That wasn't even considered. We were lucky that we collected way more. We were lucky, like just flat out lucky, that we collected way more than we thought we were going to get. I don't know how big the I mean, maybe I'm not, maybe my supporters are gonna be mad at me, but maybe we didn't, I don't know the big outcry right now to reduce the tax. I think that's a Trojan horse politically to make it forever. We're gonna give you these table scraps and reduce it by this amount, and then whisper and act like that's a tax decrease when the full intention is to extend it for 20 years or forever. And then we're gonna placate you and just say, here's a little bit of a deal for you right now, but it's forever. I think people just want us to solve local problems. I don't support reducing it right now. Sorry, business. I don't. Because we're doing a great job here. I want to end it. I want to solve it. I want to end it. And then that's the biggest tax relief you're going to get. And I want accountability. I want the dollars to know, just like Commissioner Stoll said, what are we getting for what we're paying for? Chair Smith is completely right when she talks about that being someone's annual mortgage payment that per person. And so I'm more interested in accountability than making Multnomah County align with the rest of the Tri-County area. And it's too soon to say we need to adjust the rate. We need accountability and flexibility, and that should be our position. And allow us to be the innovators that we are and to be creative and to tackle the problem head on like we are. So that would be my thing is maybe I might be the 1 out of 5 up here that says I'm all right with the information I have right now. I'm not ready to touch that. It's too volatile and we have too many expenses. I don't want to see the thing that we see with our library districts and our other districts where it's like we have this funding that stays consistent right here or somewhat volatile, but the expenses start to go like this, and then we're like, oh, we can't even do maintenance or operations. We can't keep the door or however, and so I want to be careful that we don't get to that place, and I don't see this being that structurally sound financially in the long run, but I don't necessarily want us to go down the path too soon and be caught up with the new they're going to give us a little bit of a break when the long term it's going to hurt and not do the job we're called to do.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. And we're going to end the discussion on this today because I think staff has an earful and will be quite fortunate if they can capture all of our comments today in one letter. But I will assure you of one thing. After July 9th, we will have another opportunity to discuss this issue once Metro comes out. This is just a preliminary letter jotting down our primary concerns, and that's really all it is. We are not going to change the world with this one letter, but it's very important that we get on the record as the first jurisdiction to do so. So thank you very much. If you have questions, just, ask a commissioner. Gary, what's up next?
So we're going to bring the letter back to this Thursday's business meeting for your review, correct?
Yes.
All right. Will do. Thank you. Next, Recovery Center property update. There's a brief memo in your packet, and Cindy Becker from County Administration will give you a little more details. Thank you, Cindy.
Welcome, Cindy.
Morning, everyone, and welcome back, Chair. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
So today, it's kind of a little strange, but I am telling you what you already know, which is the Board of Commissioners, have expressed interest in purchasing the former Cascade Elementary School property, which is currently owned by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. The former elementary school would be used for a future recovery center in Clackamas County. At this point, I know that you are considering this, and you have asked staff to make sure that we do community outreach, which we are already starting. We'll be sending out postcards to the residents around that property and to the businesses. We have scheduled a meeting when you're back from recess with the community on July 25th. That will be held in the Clackamas Heights former Clackamas Elementary School. And we have also, Gary and I have been invited to speak to the Happy Valley City Council on July 16th. So we are already underway making sure that we're connecting with people, both responding to questions and doing outreach and be proactive with the community, the residents around that area, as well as the businesses. And we are also going to be updating the website so people will have current information about the Recovery Center, about the plans, and about the site itself. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm very excited that you're considering this site, and we'll do the best we can to make sure that we engage with the community.
Okay. What does the outreach include, Cindy?
Excuse me?
What does the outreach include? How are you going to do it?
So first we'll be sending postcards to everybody to tell them about the potential that you're considering this. We will respond to anybody who wants us to come meet with them, but we also will be holding this community meeting. And so that would be, it's really, we want to make sure that you're all available, so we are waiting until July 25th for that to happen. If there's any particular businesses that you want us to outreach to individually, we'd be happy to do that as well. And so we're open to any suggestions. And, as I said, we want to be responsive to people who want more information, and we want to make sure that we're proactively putting that information out to folks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Cindy, is the Clackamas County Public Affairs Office working on a news release to illustrate to the public the concept for the potential development of Clackamas Elementary School?
Yes.
Yes.
You are, okay. And that's going to go out 25 July or thereabouts?
Actually, it starts today, Commissioners. This is your first public discussion. You've had many executive session discussions. This is the first public discussion.
Okay.
It's going out starting today. Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
This board has been talking for a very long time about a recovery center, the first of its kind really in the region to address the really underlying problem of what many people think is a causation for homelessness and crime on our streets. And at Clackamas County, we aim to try to solve the problem head-on to do this. And in order to do that, we have to have every single tool available along the continuum of care to solve the problem. This is one of the tools. We also have the mental health clinic opening up on Lake Road in August, I believe, Cindy. Mm-hmm. We also have the 23-hour stabilization center from the sheriffs, where if somebody has committed a crime and they are in crisis, they're taken to a facility and evaluated. They're not immediately taken to jail and evaluated so they can make a decision on how they want to proceed with their life. So there are many, many tools in our toolbox to address a horrific, complex problem that society has today. I'm hoping that the community will embrace this with open arms. And of course, we'll listen to everyone's concerns. Commissioner West?
I am fully supportive of this request, and thank you for bringing it to the public meeting today. It went from a big maybe, could we do something so bold, to here we are talking about it publicly over the last year and a half. And I know that we are looking at doing kind of a hub and spoke kind of model here, where the recovery campus would be the hub and the primary asset and infrastructure to deal with this, but then it branches out into the community to health clinics, to a navigation center, to the destabilization center. So building out all these assets to help deal with people with wherever they're at in the recovery process. And so this is exciting stuff. And so as a commissioner, I think that we have an obligation to do our part of outreach too. If this is something we care about, I'm more than happy to partner to meet with whoever in the community that has questions or concerns about how this will be rolled out. But I know that a lot of this was kind of it was inspired greatly by a 22-acre campus in San Antonio called New Haven for Hope. You've probably heard us talk about it, but Commissioner Schrader and I visited there and were quite inspired about how could we bring and tailor a model to our county that meets the need of where people are at. And so we've also started our task force, Cindy, with not providers, because that'd be a conflict of interest if they wanted to be service providers at this property, but with other electeds, with law enforcement, with healthcare providers, like OHSU is in the room.
Peers.
And peer supports and so I don't know, what do we have a task force, 20 or so people that are meeting regularly on what we want this to look like in our community. And I know we have some zoning work and some things ahead here to do, but this is, the big reveal, I guess, to the community today. So I think it's good that we move forward with this. I hope the county does choose to buy this from the North Clackamas Parks District, who also needs an infusion of cash with the reality where it's at. And so this might be a win-win not only for the North Clackamas Parks District, but also for our efforts to build out the infrastructure to meet this problem head-on, as Chair Smith said. So, yeah.
A couple of things. Thank you. I want to make sure that folks understand we're not talking about a shelter. We're not talking about a drop-in kind of go get my methadone. This is a treatment and recovery center that will be a comprehensive campus that will include a range of services from detox to outpatient services to job training and transitional housing. So this really is kind of a destination, if you will. It's not a place that, it's not a one-night shelter. And so the investment in this is really, I think as Commissioner West said, it really is kind of a microcosm of a comprehensive system of care in one location. One of the things that we're working on with PGA is creating a visual for people, because there are so many things that are happening right now, good things that are happening in Clackamas County. We want people to understand what they are and what the relationships are. And so I think it will really help people. The more that we can increase awareness and education, the better off all of us will be. So we'll also be doing this around the whole system as well.
Thank you for coming forward. This is an update only. Gary, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Thank you, Cindy.
All right, thank you. Next, review of your business meeting agenda this Thursday, June 27th, 2024, at 10 a.m. You'll have a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District public hearing on the supplemental budget. You'll have 2 county public hearings, one on supplemental budget, second on the second reading of the psilocybin ban. You'll have the Metro letter that we just discussed, and you'll have 40-plus items on your consent agenda. If you have any questions on any of those items, please let me know, and staff and I are happy to answer them for you prior to Thursday. Next, Commissioner West has a recommended draft support letter for your review, which regards increased funding to wildfire-affected communities. Commissioner West, would you like to discuss or share the letter, please?
Yeah, the letter's in our packet here. I think this is a letter that I believe Marion County would like us to sign on with as we were trying to get additional funding for the wildfire-affected areas. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to read this, but I was hoping that we would be open to signing on, I believe Douglas, Jackson, Klamath, Lane, Lincoln, and Lynn. Am I right?
Yes.
Did I miss anybody?
No, that's what the name is.
Okay.
Klamath Lane.
And so just kind of a county effort to get the necessary funding that we need when we deal with local fires. Everybody on this board dealt with that head on when I was at the city of Wilsonville. But I do think that we need to make sure that we have the funding that we need to address that crisis. So I didn't know what the board thought, but I'm open to conversations or thoughts about this letter.
Well, thank you, Commissioner West, for bringing this forward. I have read it. I'm fine with it. So these counties that are listed here, the 7 counties, 8 County, Marion, and potentially us, they are all in agreement with this letter? Okay. Commissioners, do we have any comments on this letter?
Is it a logo letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Gary, do we need a motion?
Motion, please, to approve.
Okay.
I move that we approve the letter presented before us addressing the wildfire funding and join counties Douglas, Jackson, Klamath, Lane, and Lincoln, and I believe Marion
Yep.
Second.
on this letter.
Seconded.
Commissioner West has moved that we approve the letter to Director Andrea Bell, Oregon Housing and Community Services regarding wildfire funding, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, would you please take the roll? Poll.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And all commissioners will sign this, correct?
We'll just add the county logo.
County logo. You said logo letter,
It's
yes.
a local letter, yeah.
All right. fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. You got through the whole list. The final item is Commissioner Communications.
Oh, let's see. Paul, start with you.
I don't have much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Schrader.
I'm just going to say welcome back, Chair.
Oh, thank you.
Nice to have you here. You look great. Glad to have you here.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner West?
Thank you. I'm going to quickly address some of the stuff we're doing around deflection. Myself, Sheriff Brandenburg, and DA John Wentworth met with Salinas, Congresswoman Salinas out of the Congressional 6th District. Her district covers all of Wilsonville, so it comes into Clackamas County, and really wanted to understand, she wants to know basically what's life like after Measure 110 as we move forward, and she wanted to know about all the good work we're doing in Clackamas. I think she was quite surprised, Chair, about all the success we were having, and we had pretty good representation articulating where we're at today and what we've done in Clackamas County. House Bill 4002 passed, we all know that, and basically what it does is it recriminalizes illicit substances again in 3 months in September. And so we're working feverishly as a county with our other stakeholders to stand up what a deflection is. We don't quite know where we're deflecting them to, but we're working hard at this anyways as we look to address this, and we did bring that up to the Congresswoman. But it offers the ability to get people treatment, but with accountability. And if you have a substance use disorder and you continue to refuse care, you could go to jail for 6 months. Like, that's the reality. After every effort to get you every opportunity, multiple times with multiple chances, if at the end of the day you still refuse to get care and treatment, then you could end up getting sobered up inside of a county jail. I'm super concerned, though, about the success of this overall in this state if Multnomah County continues to implement systems with no increased treatment whatsoever and zero accountability attached to it. We heard from the Oregonian this week that Jessica Vega-Peterson, DA Schmidt, who lost his reelection but is still serving until the end of the year, and the Multnomah County Sheriff have kind of freezed out all other voices, including the incoming DA Vasquez, the city of Portland, and other commissioners in Multnomah County, including Dr. Sharon Murin, who cares for this population, and Julia Brim-Edwards and others. As they continue to do the status quo, their deflection option is very similar to what Measure 110 was, except at that point, we used to just give them a $100 piece of paper with a possible ticket to it for them to call to get recovery and treatment. We had over 8,000 people receive those tickets. Only 80 or 60 or somewhere on that number actually ever called, and nobody ever went into treatment. But now Multnomah County is going to do something similar. They're just going to drop them off in front of a building that could provide them some intervention or shelter at their choice, with zero demand for actual treatment, with zero accountability attached to it. So basically, it's just a redo and a retread of what Measure 110 was. They refuse to operate and collaborate with all of our stakeholders in the region, including Metro, the other counties, the city of Portland, and they continue to isolate themselves and be quite ideological in their approach. Instead, they're just shuffling people around without any opportunities for anything different. And those struggling with substance abuse will continue to struggle in Multnomah County. I just want to give that update because as we move forward a county and try to collaborate with our regional partners, it's really, really difficult to collaborate with a partner who operates that way and in the dark while freezing out all the other stakeholders. It shows a lack of leadership and a doubling down on stupid. It reminds me of a Saturday Night Live skit where we're just getting more cowbell. We're ringing that cowbell. It's not really nice, but we are ringing the cowbell to get more cowbell. And that's what Multnomah County seems to be offering. So I hope that as we move forward, and we talked about that, there was a letter and other opportunities, that we can somehow, in a stern way, present ourselves and the need to have that collaboration. We are all stakeholders in this. What happens in Multnomah County does not happen in a vacuum. And so that's an update with what's happening in Multnomah County right now. But I guess elections have consequences, and that's what happens when you elect JVP as the chair of Multnomah County. So that's where I'm at with that, but I think that we should be aware of how deflection is rolling out in our region.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm going to head down to the Abernathy Center in a few minutes to hear the briefing from PGE on rate hikes. And then I'm going to go over to the Milwaukee Center for that new mural to see that at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. I look forward to a briefing, if you could, on Thursday on PGE and the rate hike. If you could bring that forward.
Excuse me, I'm down there now.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Scholl, excuse me, Commissioner West will be chairing the meeting tomorrow, as I have a cardiology appointment, and you don't want to miss those. Thank you very much for doing that. We're going to consider some spending on our lottery dollars, and if I were here and voting on that, I would not be supporting funding of the RAC, but it's up to the Board of County Commissioners. And I had some reservations on that about the county match and money going to our local artists and being able to piggyback on a National Endowment for the Arts. Well, I think we're much better just giving our own artists the money and not funding RAC. But you know, I won't be here to vote. I'm just telling you what I think on that. I have been very consistent on that since I've been chair of this commission. I'm also concerned about the GPI dues, and I know Commissioner Schrader, you know, you love this organization, it's fine. I asked staff to forward a letter, an email from Dan Johnson on what the match and what the economic opportunities to Clackamas County have been. And according to their own data from Dan Johnson, there hasn't been any. So there may be another benefit to that than bringing jobs to Clackamas County. But their own people were sat right there in front of us several months ago saying that they brought great economic benefit to Clackamas County, but they couldn't quantify it. We had staff do some digging, and sure enough, there have been no new businesses and no new jobs. So I would tread lightly on any further spending with that, as we could keep it in-house and use it for our own benefit going forward. But like I say, I'm not going to be here for that discussion, but if I was going to be here, that is what I would say. I know you'll have lively discussions on that tomorrow. Commissioner West, thank you for chairing. Thank you, commissioners, for that. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.